You're welcome back to the conversation at News Central Television. The government of Rwanda has expressed concern over the Democratic Republic of Congo's apparent abandonment of the Luanda and Nairobi peace processes. The Rwandan government has said that the DRC statement is a selective reading of the Luanda Communiqué of November the 23rd, 2022, and that it avoids key decisions made at the summit and concludes with a threat of imminent attacks on Rwanda. The Nairobi and Luanda processes were established in 2022 to help restore peace in the eastern DRC, where over 120 local and foreign armed groups are active.
Now, the reaction by the Rwandan government comes after Congolese demonstrators took to the streets in Goma, calling for the departure of the East African Community regional force deployed in 2022 to support the peace processes. The Rwandan government believes that the goal of the demonstrators is to cause the departure of the force, whereas the Luanda Communiqué calls for the continued full deployment of regional troops. Additionally, President Felix Tshisekedi of the DRC has accused the M23 rebel group of not fully withdrawing from areas it seized in the eastern part of the country, despite an agreement brokered by regional leaders in November. And now joining us for this conversation, we have Dr. Joseph Ryarasa Nkurunziza, Executive Director, Never Again Rwanda, who joins us from Kigali, Rwanda. We also have Nixon Katembo, Analyst, Great Lakes and East Africa, who joins us from Johannesburg, South Africa. Gentlemen, welcome to the conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Wonderful. So now I'll begin with you, Dr. Nkurunziza, and for the sake of our audience, we want to try and get a context and understanding of this recent current tensions between Rwanda and the DRC, specifically in relation to the ongoing conflict in the DRC's eastern region.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think the situation is not new. This has been ongoing for almost 28 years due to the fact that those who commit genocide fled to DRC, they indoctrinated the Congolese, and Congolese turned against the Congolese of Rwandan descent, and they saw themselves in Rwanda, and the conflict has been ongoing. But most important is that, and where the challenge comes, that people have failed to understand that irrespective of those historical challenges that were caused by those who committed genocide in Rwanda, the DRC government has governance issues, and these have affected the fact that the DRC government can sit and be able to come up with solutions and ideas of how to address the ongoing issue. And also, we shouldn't deny the fact that besides the weaknesses of the Congolese government, lack of governance, corruption, etc., there are also other external forces that are exploiting the absence of peace in DRC. Because with the absence of peace in DRC, the multinational corporations get access to resources. So, given those challenges, they've contributed to the fact that the DRC government always uses these rebel groups as scapegoats in addressing the core issues that are in DRC. Among those core issues, it's to have Congolese of Rwandan descent recognized as Congolese. So, and that is a big problem. If it's not addressed by the Congolese government, they'll keep in a cycle of violence. And that has led to the fact that now, at the moment, it is almost an ethnic cleansing of the Congolese of Tutsi origin, the Hema, and the Banyamulenge.
Thank you, Dr. Nkurunziza. I'd like to bring in Nixon Katembo from Johannesburg to respond to this. Now, fighting persists in the eastern DRC between Congolese troops and rebels from the M23 group, despite a declaration of a ceasefire and troop withdrawals. Early this week in Davos, Switzerland, President Tshisekedi said, they're only pretending to be moving. And he did make a huge statement saying that the threat to stability in the Great Lakes region has one name, and he pointed fingers at Rwanda. So we've seen accusations and counter-accusations on both sides. So as things stand, can we say that the Nairobi and Angola truce is effectively dead? And what do you have to make of the events of the past 1 week?
Well, to respond quickly to the last part of your questions, that the Nairobi agreement depends on the political will of both on the political player within the Great Lakes region, namely President Tshisekedi and President Paul Kagame, as well as Yoweri Museveni of Uganda. But let me get back to respond to the mischievousness in the submissions made by my colleague, interlocutor, Dr. Nkurunziza, about Rwandans being persecuted in Congo. Namely, he talks about Tutsi and Hema. Personally, I have a mother who is a Hema, for his information, and I know for the fact that what is happening in the Congo is not the true representation that Kigali has been advocating for. Instead, what is happening in the Congo is this idea of Kigali's interventionist agenda within the Great Lakes region, using the M23 and namely Congolese Tutsis as a proxy to further its interest in the region. It has nothing to do with the persecution of Congolese of Rwandan descent in the Congo. For his own information...
Now, Nixon, sorry to interrupt you there, Nixon. Can you provide evidence to say that, Kigali is actually providing material and financial support to the M23? What evidence do you have to link Kigali to the activities of M23?
That has been given by the United Group of Experts in a numerous report. These are not my statement. Human Rights Watch have done similar reports pointing to Kigali. There has been satellite imagery. There have been evidence of Rwandan soldiers being captured on Congolese territory. Moreover, Kigali is solely denying that. But let's get back to the issue of the Congolese of Rwandan descent. The demographic composition of the Great Lakes region is such that the communities interact, and they have different social linkages on both sides. Whether in Rwanda you have an 85% of the population who are Hutus and 14% and 1% of Twa. In the Congo, similarly, they have a Hutu majority in the North Kivu. In fact, they are the third largest group of population in North Kivu province and the south. And you have then the Tutsis, also of Congolese descent. And much of them have been integrated in the national army. Some are in parliament and some occupying key positions within the government of the DRC. And that owing to successive battles that have happened over the years, led by Rwanda in this case, from the 1996 war. So the idea and the pretext of using that their persecution of Rwandans descent, namely Tutsis and Hutus, is neither here or there, but rather a broader elitist agenda on the part of Kigali trying to further its hegemony in the region. And that should be spoken as such. And I would mention that there is no animosity between the Rwandan people as a people of Rwandan descent. There is no animosity between the Rwanda and the Congolese. In fact, these are people who share cultures. These are people who share everyday social life. If you go, for example, on the border between Rwanda and the DRC, you would see people interacting, this family interacting both on both sides from Rwanda and Uganda as well. So we should be getting away from this propaganda agenda that has been perpetrated by Kigali, that they are Rwandan of descent who are being persecuted in Congo. That is neither here or there, but rather a broader political and hegemonic agenda that Kigali have been furthering, because you would understand that much of the Rwandan economy depends so much solely on the plundering of the natural resources in the DRC. That's why you have
Nixon.
Finally, in Rwanda.
I would like Nixon. You said a lot right now, and I would like Dr. Nkurunziza to actually respond to all this, because we still see, even live here, we're seeing this trade wars and blame game between Rwanda and DRC. Now, you are saying that there is no war between the DRC and, of course, the Rwandans living in DRC, but there's still blame game of which DRC blames Rwanda for supporting the M23 rebels. Meanwhile, we're seeing reports here now that Kigali has cried about concerns of Kinshasa abandoning Luanda and Nairobi peace process. Now, Dr. Nkurunziza, I'm bringing this to you there. Why do you say that that Kinshasa has abandoned the peace process?
Yeah, thanks a lot. But one thing that I did first make clear is that Rwanda is not responsible for the DRC's government's internal governance issues. So, because the Eastern DRC has almost 130 rebel groups. So, let's go into the counter-accusations. So, the reasons why, and it's good that my colleague Nixon mentioned that there is need for the political will for all the parties involved in the peace process. So when one party tries to undermine the resolutions of what came out of the Nairobi and the Rwanda peace processes, so it's a concern. So that means that the peace process won't take place. So the concern of the Kigali government is seeing a key partner in the peace process undermining what was agreed on. Nothing else, because the priority of Rwanda is is peace, because we understand the challenges and the absence of peace, because this country came out of similar experiences. So we understand.
Sorry to butt in, but in what ways does Kigali think that Kinshasa is undermining the peace process? What are they doing to suggest that they are undermining it?
So one, of course, I've heard what Nixon says, and I also read what the Kinshasa government said, where they are saying that the M23 has not respected what was agreed upon. So the fighting is continuing. The hate speech is still going on a daily basis. My colleagues in the western region in Rubavu, were being informed of the number of refugees that are crossing the border because of the hate speech, because their family members are being attacked. Last week on Wednesday, 2,000 people crossed the border. So when that happens, and also the demonstrations being organized by the state against the East African
forces.
So all that shows the fact that the Congolese government is undermining what was agreed upon in Nairobi and Rwanda.
Okay, now, Nixon, I'm bringing you to all of this because this crisis has been going on for a long time. Now, I wonder, what has been the impact of this war in the minority DRC region? How has this impacted the state?
But before I respond how it is impacting on the state, let's look at who is undermining the peace, Luanda peace process here. And I think my colleagues there is not being truthful on what is happening in the DRC. First of all, the agreement was that the M23 have to withdraw from all the territory that it has captured from the Congolese government to surrender their arms unconditionally. 3, integrate into the national political social life of the country, but also demobilize. Has the M23 done that? No. The third aspect was for the M23 actually to rejoin the political process within the DRC and rejoin the political class like any other political party to contest for any democratic election that might happen in the DRC. Instead, what we saw, the M23 playing gimmicks of withdrawal in Kibumba, as well as the Rumangabo military camp, but in real sense, what they went then they went to attack places like Kanyamahoro, they went to attack places like Kishishe and many other places, and advancing towards the town of Sake in the Walikale province. So you see what the Kigali is saying, but sending troops to support the M23 to attack all these villages within the Rutshuru territory in the Kivu province, but then come up and say that the Congolese government are actually relocating from the Luanda peace process.
Thank you, Nixon. We're fast running out of time. I'd like to pose this question to Dr. Nkurunziza. Now, Dr. Nkurunziza, you did say that, you know, Rwanda's, Congo's internal problems are their problems. It's not Rwanda's. And your president, Paul Kagame, has echoed that so many times. What will it take to bring about long-lasting peace to the eastern DRC? The United States in the last 1 month, France, Belgium, and even Germany has spoken about Kigali's tacit support for M23 rebels, even though Kigali denies it. So what will it take for Kigali to hands-off support from M23? And what will it take to bring about lasting peace to the DRC? Because if the DRC government it can't control what external factors do. That's why they're appealing to Kigali to stop this support. With also, the international community has also echoed this same sentiment.
Yeah, one, I think what needs to be done, I think the Congolese themselves, they know it better. And also my friend Nixon knows very well that they need the Congolese themselves to be honest with themselves. So they need to sit on a drawing table and outline their own internal issues. They need to work with their own civil society organizations so as to be able to understand how they can be able to address their internal problems. If they are not honest with themselves, they will keep being confused, and they will also continue being used by external forces who are exploiting the fact that there is conflict within the DRC. Rwanda has been hosting almost 75,000 Congolese refugees. Those are in camps here. It's not a madman, a Kigali making.
Okay. Now, quickly, I want Nixon to respond to it before we call it a wrap, please. How would you respond to what would bring about lasting peace? Because we're still going on and on. What do you think will bring about?
30 seconds, if you can, please. Thank you.
I think what it needs here is the political will on the part of Kigali and the sincerity of seizing its support for the rebel groups in Eastern DRC from 1996 up until today. Second is allowing the DRC to restructure and re-engineer its institutional framework in terms of building state capacity to respond to the challenges that are within both in the social and the political and economic wise. In terms of security, the government of the DRC need to do a security sector reform in restructuring its own army, because it has been...
Nixon, I wish we could go on, but my director is telling us we have to go.
Don't worry, this conversation will continue later on, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Joseph Ryarasa Nkurunziza, Executive Director, Never Again Rwanda, who joined us from the capital, Kigali, and Nixon Katembo, Analyst, Great Lakes and East Africa, who joined from Johannesburg, South Africa. It was a pleasure having you both on the conversation. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is where we draw the curtains in today's edition of The Conversation. In the first half, we did look at the EU-Africa summit that happened last year. A lot of promises were made. Why have they not been fulfilled? We just concluded our conversation on the ongoing diplomatic spat between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Thank you very much for being a part of today's program. I am Gbenga Aborowa.
And don't forget, the conversation doesn't end here. You can join us on social media at News Central TV and drop your views on these conversations. I'm Rita Omodia. Do see you again next week.
Bye-bye.